I've seen you in the sanctuary, beheld your power and glory. My lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands. Your love is better than life. Your love is better than life. Earnestly I seek you. My soul is thirsting for you. 'Cause your love is better than life. Because you are my help, I will be singing in the shadow of your wing. I'm staying close beside you. Your right hand upholds me. I think of you through the night. With singing lips I will praise, and my soul will be satisfied. Your love is better than life. Your love is better than life. Earnestly I seek you. My soul is thirsting for you. 'Cause your love is better than life. Oh God, you are my God. You are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I'm longing for you. Oh God, you are my God. You are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I'm longing for your love is better than life. Your love is better than life. Earnestly I seek you. My soul is thirsting for you. 'Cause your love is better than life. Your love is better than life.
All right, we're live. Welcome to Beyond the Fundamentals. How are you?
I'm good.
So yesterday we talked with Doug, and Doug shared some thoughts, and I thought yesterday's conversation went pretty good.
I did too. I was actually really surprised at like the flow of the conversation, but I was also kind of simultaneously taken back by. I mean, I feel like Beyond the Fundamentals is a little bit late to this conversation.
Yeah.
But I
forgot to put in one of my visual aids real quick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'll listen to you while I find this.
I've been pleasant. I don't know if it pleasantly is the right word, but I've been surprised at the comments that we got in the video already. It's been about 24 hours, and there's a ton of comments in the comment section that are very lengthy for the average Beyond the Fundamentals comments.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes me think that people have a lot to say about this, one way or another. However their disposition is or the tone of the comment that they made. A lot of people were very, forgive me, but persnickety about it, I guess you could say.
What do you mean by persnickety?
Well, I think the angles that they took were kind of almost dismissive, where it was like, well, this is really simple. Like, homosexuality and the whole sex thing is very simple, but that yet they had an entire treatise written out for their comment. So it's like, if you have a lot to say about it, that's fine. You don't have to be dismissive about the whole thing and act as if, your little keyboard warrior attempt is going to end the entire discussion and now we can move on to something else. I was a little bit surprised at all the attention, but also I think we decided to meet up this morning and kind of talk about it as a follow-up, just to kind of, maybe encapsulate a little bit more of like the reaction from everything.
Yeah, so a lot of those longer comments that you talked about, like direct reductive. It's like we already know the stock Christian answer of stigmatize for the abominations.
Yeah.
We already know that.
Yeah.
We already know to stigmatize people for their abominations.
Yes. We know how to do that very well.
Yeah, so
as you could see.
I don't need somebody in the comments to repeat this thing that isn't working.
Right.
You see?
I do.
We've already heard that all of our lives. Like, I never would have imagined telling somebody it's okay to go to well, not okay, but like it's the appropriate thing to do.
Right.
In that situation, I never would have imagined that it would ever be the appropriate thing to do to maybe go to a wedding that didn't support one's own moral values. So the clip that did not come up that I wanted to play, there's a clip of Jordan Peterson, and it's like all these people think that attending an event like this is condoning it,
Yeah.
And and back to Doug's comments yesterday about something that's an idea versus lived out. It's not like going to a gay or transgender wedding of like a celebrity or somebody you don't know. You know, what we're dealing with is interacting with people in your life.
Yes.
And in this case, it was a grandmother and a grandson.
Right.
Okay? So what is appropriate to do? And when someone interacts with somebody else, this doesn't necessarily condone everything they're doing.
That's right.
This video from Jordan Peterson, which I guess we're not playing.
I just want to point out something that I'm seeing that you're saying about the difference between going to a transgendered, like, say, celebrity's wedding and your grandson's wedding.
Right.
Is that there's such a difference of dynamic layers of relationship that need to be taken into consideration, and it can't just be this hardline, dismissive, one size fits all answer. And people who are doing that are, at the very minimum, very deeply immature in their morality and in their sense of wisdom and the things that they can consider. So I think that's what you're kind of trying to point out.
Yeah, I got Grudem's book sitting right over there. But what Christians like to do, they like to have like a one-size-fits-all universalistic. I don't mean like universalism as in everybody gets saved, but like the rule universally applies to everyone all the time. They like that. And they can't imagine that not being the case. So if somebody suggests that in one case it is appropriate for a grandmother to go to a grandson's transgender wedding,
right?
They think that is the rule for all Christians all the time to always go to transgender weddings.
You've now opened Pandora's box.
Yeah,
and it's an endless license for all grandmothers.
If you raise your hand to use the bathroom, all the kids are going to want to go to the bathroom.
But again, that's first grade thinking.
It is first grade thinking. Yeah.
So
there's not like it's like they can't think that maybe there's an appropriate thing to do here that is not a universal policy that is being recommended for everybody else in every situation.
I mean, it just sounds so simple to me and you.
Yeah.
I feel like this
There's no
sounds
controversy
so
here.
simple.
Like, if, like you just told me a few minutes ago that you decided not to go to a transgender wedding.
So, yeah, that's right. The one thing I didn't bring up in the video with Doug, and I don't know why, it just didn't come to mind in the midst of the conversation, but last spring, I was invited to a transgender wedding of some friends of mine, and I didn't go. And I know why I didn't go. Mm-hmm. And here I am talking about the Alistair Begg controversy and trying to not, lean one way or another. Or I was trying to get like the proper perspective for each individual who's considering the situation and what would be the best optimal grip that they could get for their own ethical proximal development.
Right.
That was my point. Mm-hmm. And, so me bringing up a situation where I had to deal with a similar situation, I think would have, it would have taken away from what I really wanted to say in the video yesterday. But now it's like I see all of these comments and I'm like, all of these people who act as if, it's such an easy thing to consider, or that it's a unidimensional thing to consider. The Bible is very clear on this, and we have to do what the Bible says.
They have a universalized policy that applies to everyone all the time for all situations.
Yeah, and ironically, I actually made that decision. I made the decision to say no. And the reason was along the lines of the video that you had sent this morning with Jordan Peterson. When he was just giving, I think he was talking to Joe Rogan or something, and it
looked like a Joe Rogan podcast.
He was saying that it's no help to somebody.
Let me summarize what the video says real quick, since we can't play it. But the video summarized says the title of it is "You're Not Okay." Yeah, right. Like this. There's this whole "You're okay like you are." Everyone's okay like they are, and some of the comments. And I have a comment from somebody, one of the longer ones we can read. They think that we're telling everybody that we accept and condone everybody like they are, but the point is nobody's okay like they are. We don't endorse anybody. Exactly. We don't recommend endorsing anybody. Everybody has the potential to transform. Like JP says, if you're 18 years old, you probably got 60 years in front of you. Right. And you darn well better be different at the end of that road than you are at the beginning. Exactly. You better be changing. And so when you interact with somebody, you're not okay like you are, especially if somebody is in the middle, like down in the dumps, and the situation is dire and they're desperate, and you tell them they're okay like they are, like, well, hold on. So it's... What should I do then? If I'm okay like I am, my life is terrible.
Right. It's not helpful.
Yeah, it's actually an optimistic claim to say you are not okay like you are, and you should be doing something different. Yes. So everyone is not okay like they are, and they should be becoming better. Yes. And you can recursively improve the amount that you can get better over time. You can accelerate the betterness over time. And when you interact with somebody, that's the goal. Yes. So no, we don't. We don't accept anybody. Oftentimes there are.
From a certain perspective, we don't accept anybody.
Right, and then from another perspective, I will interact with them
exactly
in a way that maybe provide an affordance. Yes. To open a portal into a transformative life. Yes. And I can't have that interaction to offer that affordance unless I interact with them in the way that they are not okay right now. Yeah. And when it comes to weddings, there's weddings where hetero people are getting married that I think is a really bad idea. I know. And I know they're going to get divorced. And I don't endorse that, but because I still want to be there for them after they're divorced to help pick up the pieces, I will go to the wedding and take a gift, knowing it's going to fall apart, and I'll help you put the pieces back together later, but I still want to be instrumental in their life. Exactly.
exactly.
And so you can, yeah. Anyway,
No, it just sounds like you're building up a. It sounds like you're building up a person or an agent that is capable of both positive and negative reinforcement. Knows when to apply it. So Jordan Peterson in his video is in an optimistic way using a technique of like negative reinforcement, where you're taking something away from the person, or you're implementing a negative, like you're not okay. Not is a negative.
So okay is something you're missing.
Yes, you're not okay. I'm taking that away in order to serve some kind of reinforcing goal. So it's meant to motivate the person to see all of the potential that's in front of them. That's why he says about the 18-year-old, what does an 18-year-old have over a 60-year-old? Plenty of potential.
Yeah, but they have no. An 18-year-old they have no agency in the world. They have big visions about all the things that they want to change, grand ideas. They're ideologues most of the time, but they can't even square their own, their own situation away.
And that's kind of like the bothersome thing about a lot of the comments that I saw. And as I'm kind of looking through YouTube and just looking through the internet on how a lot of the American church or Calvinist community has responded to this.
Right.
And I'm just so shocked, but also not shocked at the total lack of wisdom and consideration. And that's not me saying that, love has to conquer all and we have to accept everybody. That's me saying that it's like, it's not even with bandwidth of their considerations to be able to hold the weight of a particular situation. It's like they just want to like let it go too quickly, and just come to the conclusion, reference a couple Bible verses, and there, it's all done. Wash your hands of it. We know what the answer is here. And I think that what Doug was kind of getting at to a degree was the difference between having the idea settled in your mind and the vast difference between actually being in that situation where your body is affected, your relationships to the world are affected, and it's not merely this, unidimensional idea space where we can reference Wayne Grudem and have the answer.
So
it's so different.
It's being in the middle of the fog of a situation. It's better different and it's worse different. And in some ways, it's blinding because your own situation can blind you, and it helps to have a third party help you think through it that isn't directly affected. That's why some people go to counseling, talk to a friend, talk to a pastor, something like that. But also, being in the middle of the situation, you understand some nuances of that situation that aren't quite graspable from the outside. Now, I encounter this a lot when I'm dealing with stealth Calvinists in churches. Okay. Like, it's easy for me to tell people what to do, kick the thief out,
Yeah.
But they have friendships and relationships, and there's intertangling alliances.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of reasons why it may or may not be appropriate for them to act at a particular time because they understand the situation firsthand.
When you were doing the episodes with Debbie and Marcia, I think that is totally something I overlooked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I was very attached to how I would have handled it. But it's like, dude, how you would have handled it is so distant and so not enmeshed into the dynamics of what's going on there that for you to just say how you would handle it is it's super dismissive. Yeah, and it's merely brought down to the level of ideas like Doug is saying.
Well, it's kind of like a balance. It's like, in one sense, an external perspective can be helpful. In another sense, not having the internal perspective can cause you to miss some serious...
Because you can be too hyper-focused on
details.
something. Yeah, that's such a good point. That's such a good point, because I feel like maybe that is the disappointment that I have with, the communities that are dealing with this, is that they're so hyper-focused on something that they can't zoom out and solve the 9-dot problem, for example.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But you also, like you said, you can't be so far zoomed out to where there's other things that could distract you from actually what's relevant. So there is this zone of like a sweet spot for wisdom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I think we're trying to hit.
Yeah, and it's not like we have this mindset in the left hemisphere, propositional reductionism. We think that we can write out a rule book for wisdom that everyone should apply all the time. That's the opposite of wisdom. That's not how wisdom works. Wisdom is very dynamic.
Yeah.
It's like you might say that wisdom is like facing a fire or a flood.
It's very ephemeral. It
very
comes
ephemeral.
and it goes.
What's the word? They have like Sophia, but then they have
Techne. Words for wisdom?
the one where you
Phronesis.
Phronesis, yeah, the phronesis. So if you're fighting a fire, there are certain basic overall things that need to happen. Like you need to suppress the fire sometimes.
Yes.
And sometimes water is appropriate, and sometimes you need some non-water suppressants because water will just make it worse.
Right.
It's like an electrical fire or something like that, chemical fire. So there are certain things you need to do, but for any particular fire, there may be considerations that aren't present with other ones. You see?
Yeah.
So the general overall goal to suppress the fire is there, but how you go about doing it may be very different in any particular situation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
People don't seem to have an eye for that.
Yeah. And that's the eye that I'm trying to train up in my own self, you know, in order to, and like to bring it back to the real life example that I had to go through, which was similar. The reason I didn't go was specifically because I felt, and I could have been wrong. This is just how I felt. I knew how my body felt. I knew all of my ideas and all of my doctrines and all of my proclivities. You know, like this is sin and like, but taking all of that into consideration, I said, you know, I just don't feel like this is an authentic thing.
Right.
And I, in my own way, let them know that I'm not going because I feel like you're not being your best self. And that's not with the implication that I somehow know that that person's best self is that they quit their transgenderism. Immediately. You know what I'm saying? It's just that there's so many things that I'm thinking about in their life where it kind of feels like the transgenderism is a symptom or a byproduct of some other things that are not in order.
Like they're trying to put on a show or pander to a particular ideology.
It felt like, I think I said grandstanding this morning.
Or people who want to be exceptional without doing anything exceptional.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's how it felt, and I'm kind of proud that, you know, I had the sense in the although I wouldn't have necessarily articulated it, like I feel like you're grandstanding, and I feel like that's, you know, unbecoming of who you could be, and also I feel like you're trying to be exceptional without having done anything exceptional. Like I may not have articulated like that in the moment, but that's how it felt. And so I was like, no, I'm not going.
Like we talked earlier about some people who, like people we know that would use an acute extemporaneous sickness to get out of doing something.
Yeah,
it's almost like, it's like, you know, they're not really sick, but they like want the attention that comes from having disrupted the event that everyone was relying on them for.
Yeah.
And then a couple of generations later, I know somebody like physical sickness. I know somebody who was willing to probably malinger with mental illness for the same kind of reason. I'm not accomplishing anything in my life, but I can get attention with this.
Yeah.
And so if the traditions of society are a certain way, and I'm not really exceptional because I haven't done anything amazing, I can just bust those traditions and get some more attention. And get celebrated.
It sounds like a manufactured victimhood.
That's a really good way to say it. Yeah, manufactured victimhood.
Yeah. And you've said this before, that for whatever reason in our current society there is a there is a structure. There's this phenomenal structure where somebody can acquiesce to virtue through victimhood.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
we substitute.
I don't know how that happens or why that happens
Like
necessarily.
somebody will quote a theologian, and when you negate them, no, that's not true. But they died a martyr. That doesn't make dying a martyr doesn't make untrue things true.
Yeah.
And like a woman will go to a battered women's and children's shelter. She'll be in there with her kids in tow, little ducklings coming after her, and she's got 2 black eyes because the husband, beat the fire out of her.
Yeah.
And that's terrible. And you think of her as virtuous, but what you don't know is that she was using the kids for child porn, and the husband found out.
Right.
You see, you don't know
Exactly.
the rest of the story. And so, if everyone's celebrating, it's brave to step out of the traditional and cultural norm. I can show virtue that way just by doing that without actually having to become something.
That's the
Like they
acting
can make a spectacle out of it.
exceptional.
I'm not saying that anybody who has a different sexual orientation, that's the only reason they're doing it.
Yeah, I know that.
But maybe for a wedding, they might just be grandstanding that thing.
But you would at least want to have the sensibility built up within you to notice if that's what's going on.
And I'm not saying everyone is.
No, I know.
What I'm saying is that in a situation, you might get the sense that this is not a genuine wedding between these two people, but there's something showy. There's
Yes.
something signaling. They're signaling something here
Yes.
other than the pure genuineness of what this ceremony is
Yes.
supposed to be for.
And for me,
and you get that sense.
for me personally, I would rather spend the time and go through the spiritual exercises and the techniques in order to have that kind of sense about anything that's, quote, controversial or dynamically difficult, rather than just going to my Bible or my preacher or whoever, some bozo, and having them tell me XYZ, or well, this is what God thinks about this, so you want to defy God. Like, I'd rather have the sense built up in my own self.
So I want to double click on that for a second, because we had some people in the comments quoting from 2 Corinthians 6. Separate from the unclean, and what fellowship have light with darkness, and all this kind of stuff. And what they're doing is they're looking at a situation. They're looking strictly through the lens of weddings and sexuality. And fundamentalist American Christians are hypersexualized anyway.
Yeah.
But they're looking strictly through that lens. And they're seeing hetero weddings and gay and transgender weddings. Light, dark.
Yes.
Well, let's take that axis. If I turn it like this, and I'm like, now let's look through a different lens. Maybe that's you, sir, are a lower level consciousness. And if I can see more clearly, 1 Corinthians 13:8, it's darkness for me to pander to you and have fellowship with you. So, I mean, he thinks...
How did you come up with that? The rotation of the axis so that you're actually looking through the depths, rather than the bandwidth.
All you have to do,
How did you think of that?
I don't know.
Come up with that
I saw it visually. Like you shift. So what they're doing, they think they're going to Scripture, but they're not actually going to Scripture. They're taking a particular imposition on the text, not an interpretation of the text.
Yeah.
They have already decided that one of these things is good, one of these things is bad, and they're using that text to justify it. Well, if I can look at any spectrum of things, like shift the axis around in reality.
Yeah, but the way you did it was like you took the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then you rotate it in such a way so that you're not looking at its x-axis, but you're looking at the z-axis now. And now you're looking down it.
And then you can go to the y-axis
through it.
and the z, or you can... You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. It's like I'm like having a blast trying this.
If I move it over here, what's the light in the dark? If I move it over here, what's the light in the dark? They've got a unidimensional, like a univariant kind of...
That's called an articulation.
Yeah.
Like, so to think through the thing, I can't get away from the language. Like, that's actually thinking through the subject at hand.
Yeah, so that guy's using the Bible to bully people and to show hate and ussing and themming and rivalry. It's all the stuff that 1 Corinthians 3 tells you not to do. There's, I'm of Paul, I'm of Apollos, and there's
right.
fighting and rivalry between you. And so if I apply the same passage, he is the darkness that I should stay clear of.
That's what you did in that response. Wow.
Yeah. So that's the visual
That's
I
really
had in the
cool.
response. Is to so they think they're going to Scripture, but what they don't realize is that from another perspective, they are the darkness everyone else should avoid.
Right.
They're not going to Scripture. They already have their mind made up.
Right.
Jonathan Haidt, the elephant.
Yeah, they're going to their moral foundations for, in jettisoning right to the answer.
And they've found a Scripture that appeals to external locus of authority, stage 3 people.
Yeah.
That makes them think there is an authoritative reason to hate and not exercise wisdom in a particular situation.
Yeah. Holy cow. That's such a good visual.
And so I think that might be a good practice in biblical interpretation in general.
Understand
we
a
tend to
spectrum.
think so binarily.
Yeah.
And where's the paper clips? Because
Yeah.
we tend to think so binarily, and almost always there's like a third aspect.
Yeah.
That's missing.
That you're totally missing.
And so let's look in 3 dimensions.
Yes.
Let's not just look at
Look
this one thing
because
of
it's more real.
hetero wedding good, gay wedding bad.
Yeah.
Let's look at those people need wise elders in their life to help because they're not okay, remember?
Yes, they're not.
They need a Mr. Miyagi or a Yoda in their life to help afford for them a portal to their transformation. And you can't afford that for somebody when you're absent. Maybe in some situation, absence is the right thing. Maybe in another situation, it's not.
Yes.
So you can't make a blanket statement about wisdom when you can't overestimate our capacity to pre-specify relevance.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
I'm still caught up on this. This is crazy.
Yeah, that whole thing. So here's what I want to hit on too. One of the comments, the one that I replied to that I sent you, somebody said, and I want to make a distinction. I think that if we say that there is possibly a time and place when it's appropriate to attend a gay or transgender wedding, when I think people are confusing that with like a progressive church who waves a rainbow flag and accepts everybody like they are.
Yeah. My dad's calling me.
We don't endorse that. We can't endorse that.
Yeah.
We don't accept hetero people like they are. Everyone needs to So I disagree. I think the progressive liberal church, what people think of, where you have the priests wearing like a rainbow prayer shawl and they're flying a rainbow flag and they got Black Lives Matter out on the front of the church. I walked by a church in Boston that had exactly this.
Yep.
Had a rainbow flag,
A lot of
Black
churches
Lives
in Boston
Matter,
like that.
And the priest is wearing a rainbow prayer cloth.
Yep.
I think that banner waving is the dumbest thing churches can do. If you're listening to this, it's a mistake to conflate the application of wisdom, which might result in the attendance of a gay wedding, to like banner waving a rainbow flag and endorsing all gay weddings and accepting all people just like they are. No, everybody needs to transform.
Yes.
And to the degree that I accept people, like I accept you, honestly, because I know that you are transformation oriented.
Yeah.
If I thought that you were going to stay exactly like you are now, I'd never have anything to do with you.
Yeah, uninteresting.
Because you're gross.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And I feel like that's what we were trying to encourage in the video yesterday. Like, because I've watched a number of videos now about all of these Calvinist preachers. And it's crazy because there's hundreds of thousands of people watching this. And it's like, who cares? I mean, not even who cares what James White thinks about Alistair Begg.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's just so predictable about what he might say about it.
Right. James White, you don't need him to be there. He's not a person.
And it's just...
He's a script with a face.
It's just so bothersome that it feels so right and like worthwhile to me to focus on not only affording myself the opportunities to think through something like this controversy, but also that might expand or enhance my own agency to a point where I could potentially afford someone else the space to do that as well. That's like staying laser focused, or at least interpreting as much of my reality as possible as an opportunity to do that thing or go through that process is so much more real, authentic, worthwhile, and frankly, not to assert virtue, but it's more valuable. More valuable to do than to get up and, kowtow to the obvious answer.
Yeah, the obvious answer from an armchair quarterback perspective. So we were talking before. So when you leave that situation, having thought through it, having applied wisdom, having very carefully selected your course of action because of having a transcendent telos in mind for your relationship with those people.
Yes.
And that should be with anything, whether or not, like we went to a parade the other day, whether or not you're going to go to a parade with somebody, whether or not you're going to go play volleyball with somebody, whether or not you're going to play soccer with somebody, or play chess, or do a video with them.
Yep.
You have this transcendent goal in mind for interacting that you use to decide what is yours to do here.
Yeah.
What is the most appropriate thing to do based on what you want to happen with yourself and that person. Now, when that's all over, you now have that much more problem-solving practice under your belt.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was this movie with Ben Affleck called Paycheck.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever seen it?
I haven't seen it.
So, he would do these highly classified projects, build these very technical things, right?
Yeah.
And then because they were such, corporate espionage, all this, he would agree to have his memory wiped after every project.
Huh.
Well, I think that's kind of dumb, because then you don't have the cumulative knowledge of all the problems that you've had to solve coming. You don't have the benefit of your own experience.
Yeah, me personally, I would be totally screwed as a person if I couldn't reference, video games that I played when I was 6 years old.
Well, let's take it to a different level. Like, you are figuring out on a daily basis how to pull 18-wheelers with hazardous material out of ditches.
Right.
Right. That's you got to do a lot of problem solving there.
Yeah.
There's no, like, when a truck wrecks, it does not have a pre-specified way in that it wrecks.
Yeah, that's right. It's
everyone's
collision.
Different.
Yeah.
There is no Wayne Grudem for truck wrecks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know.
You have to figure everyone out differently. And like when I was deployed, I remember going from Tikrit down to Fallujah to help one of our companies put together reestablish a communications plan where a bunch of stuff had been taken. So we're talking about, I worked with 18 different communications platforms. So we're hooking things up to satellites. We're using ComSec. We're using frequency hopping. We're doing all this stuff, putting our hands on the stuff, like equipment, something tactile about it, solving problems, making things happen. And to have to think through problems as a job in the real world, and then to listen to somebody who just talks about churchy things.
Yeah.
They've never solved problems.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Dungeons and Dragons.
It's totally Dungeons and Dragons
It's
theology.
nothing. There's nothing real.
Yeah.
In all these opinions that are floating around, they've never had to solve a problem.
Yeah. That's why I feel like I'm in some ways glad. I'm totally disinterested in talking about this.
Yeah,
I
same.
genuinely don't care.
Same.
But at the same time,
it's like an opportunity, especially the comments.
It feels like an opportunity
because we see lots of examples of low-level consciousness.
It feels like an opportunity to put our finger on the pulse of where modern American Christianity wisdom is.
Yes.
And
Almost
it's like I'm not feeling anything.
There's nothing there. There's no pulse in Christian wisdom right now. There's nothing that's dead. So it's this controversy is like a diagnostic tool.
Yeah, that's what it feels like right now to me, and I'm hopeful, but also I'm a little bit disappointed with, especially from, a lot of these church leaders, in the things that they're affording to their constituents or their flock to consider. It's like, that's just dead wrong. Like, you're putting up all of these barriers for these people that doesn't allow them or afford them the opportunity to maybe think something different. You know what I mean? And and a lot of it stems from like this sense of fear. Like how?
So when you say, let me pause you right. The sense of when you say that, you can join our group, but you're not allowed to think anything different. I get a visual of Agent Smith turning other people in the Matrix into another one of him.
Yeah.
There is no variant thinking. There is no Ephesians 4:16 edification. There is no insight cultivated from different viewpoints. We have all outsourced all of our sense making to a singular viewpoint, and to be part of the group, you're not allowed to have other perspectives or viewpoints. Which the strength of a group is the other perspectives and viewpoints, and we just outsource all that.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like the zombies. You have to your brain. Why do zombies want to eat brains?
Yeah,
they move in a group. You see, and there's
It just feels
they're
like
not accomplishing anything, and they eat brains.
It just feels like a like a spiritual. We talk about the body of Christ, and the Bible has a lot of like metaphors towards like the body.
Right.
The the wellness of the body, the edification of the body, the growth of the body, etc. The redemption of the body, etc., etc. And it feels like you're dealing with a body of people that it's like spiritual, like rigor mortis. It's like there's no flexibility.
Oh wow, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Good analogy.
And it's like, it's not your job to stretch.
In the name of Christianity, which is supposed to make you alive, we got rigor mortis bad.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to stretch. I didn't mean to.
Well, no. I mean, I'm just trying to follow the analogy wherever it's leading me, and it feels like it's not the person's or the preacher or the whoever leader's job to like stretch out the person's legs or arms or shoulders or whatever, but it's to afford them the opportunity to go to like a yoga session. Like you need to cultivate an arena or cultivate an environment which allows for stretching and not keep them in a coffin. So you know what I'm saying?
It's like
to go along with the vampire thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like a wisdom gym. You should be working with people as a personal trainer to get them closer to their goals, to move and do more than they could before. But all we're doing now is getting people to go through the gym and label how much weight is on the plates. Something like that. That's what church is. You have to agree that this is 45 pounds. Yeah. You have to agree that this is 23 kilograms. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or you're not out of well, let's go lift it. Let's go do some bench press.
That's right.
Do some curls or something.
Yeah.
It's this silly thing where there's nothing being cultivated because they become an answer service. The churches have become this, what we can provide the best answers competition. Yeah. Rather than I can cultivate you to the kind of person who can think through problems.
So I want to see if I can, I'm having a thought right now about this, and I'm going to try and draw something out about how I anticipate some experiences that maybe some of the audience members have had, and try to see if I can, bring a little bit of life or at least touch the muscle and see if it reflexes.
Oh, interesting.
And it has to do with when I read stories, like I'm going to use 1 Kings chapter 3, for example. Mm-hmm. There's something about the first time that I heard that story when I was a kid. There was something. Let me go to a musical analogy first. Mm-hmm. Everybody's heard a song mm-hmm. where there's a moment in the song where it sends shivers down your spine, like your body, like either it feels different, something's different, like, and it's like, whoa, this like feels very powerful. I think the same phenomenon happens when you are able to observe some kind of inspirational act of decision making. Like, you watch The Passion, the movie The Passion. That's like that's the whole appeal and draw to it, is that like you're watching this thing happen and you know why it's happening. And it's like the decision-making process that Jesus was going through and what he suffered and endured was like, it's so inspiring to in a way that surpasses and goes beyond just your intellect, and it affects your body, right? So,
we were just talking to Cliff the other day, and he's like, yeah, in the movie The Passion, I don't think I could do that. Like, if I was in Jesus, I think you have to ask yourself that question. Wow. I don't think I could make the decisions that lead a person to go through with that. Exactly.
And so when we've been talking about 1 Kings chapter 3 a little bit, in applying it and overlaying it to different things. And I remember like hearing about that story, that famous story about when Solomon prays to God for a wise heart, or a heart like his father David, in a dream, and it gets granted to him. And then the first thing that happens is Solomon gets confronted with a decision. Now, that decision has to do something with, there's two mothers, and there's one dead baby, and there's a...
No, not dead baby. Baby's still alive.
Well, there's one dead baby.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
and then one baby's still alive.
Yeah. The one in question is still alive.
Is still alive.
I'm sorry, yeah.
And so I think that story is jam-packed with endless amounts of, mythopoetic wisdom opportunities. And when I heard that at a very young age, I felt that thing in my body where it was like, whoa, like Solomon is like super wise. Like he was able to see, and I think it even says it in the text that he was able, like it's symbolic that he uses a sword, which is language or the logos, in order to cut through and divide and then see and understand something beyond, right? And so that's what he does, is he cuts through, and because he says, bring me a sword, and I'm going to cut the baby in half. So he's going to divide something.
And this mother gets... So those not familiar with the story, there's two mothers arguing. One of them's baby died, and then they're arguing over the one that's still alive. They're both claiming it as theirs.
Correct.
Oh, the dead one's hers. This one, the live one's mine.
Yes.
And they don't have DNA testing back then.
Right.
So Solomon's like, well, bring me a sword. I'll divide the baby, and you each get half.
Right. And then all the while, he's getting them to zero focus on that when he knows what he's doing in the background, where he's like, I know that, I'm going to observe how each one reacts, and then I will discern, like Hebrews 4:12, the word of God is quick and powerful.
That in Hebrews 5:14.
Yeah.
Exercise your senses to discern both good and evil. You're
Exactly.
going to use the senses to see, to evaluate.
Yes.
How does this one make my body feel? How does this one make my... Yeah.
Exactly. And then he's able to determine, because of one woman's reaction, she is the mother thereof. And when I see a story like that, it affects my body to a degree where what I want to say to the audience is to get them to consider, when was the last time that you watched a movie, you read a book, you heard a sermon, or you observed some kind of action in the world that affected your body and inspired you? And like, take it technically, like it inspirited you. It gave you a sense of meaningfulness, and maybe a little bit of that Jordan Peterson, like, you're not okay as you are now by the standard of this thing that you just observed. Right. And that's inspiring to you. And so I'm constantly trying to put myself in, seize opportunities that come in front of me, and they're all over the place. It just depends on how much meaning I'm able to extrapolate out of that particular circumstance or that particular decision or that particular way that I'm, my dad called, how I'm going to talk to my dad and deal with whatever problems he's calling about or something like that. That's kind of the orientation that I want to take, because that's what's going to afford me the opportunity to transform, and hopefully, that becomes contagious and whatnot. But I feel like this Alistair Begg thing was totally an opportunity for us to look and see where we're at, and afford people the spiritual exercise of getting them to consider how they would act if they were King Solomon. You know what I mean? Because you need all of that. Like, I mean, at least I do. Like, I'm not smart enough to be able to just know exactly from my own experiences what the right answer would be, or being able to do it in a phronesis kind of way where it happens through the flow of the circumstance, where I just make this decision and then this decision. And it's not this, I took 6 months to study the Bible to find out what to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I just can't do that. So I need to rely on those things that have inspired me or informed me. I need to rely on them in order to act in achieve a flow state of decision making.
A flow state of decision making. So it's like the question is not, should I go to a gay wedding?
Right.
That's not the question.
Yeah.
That's the I think that's the problem.
Okay.
That's not the question. Not should I go to a transgender wedding. The question is, what can I do to help provoke this person to their next rung on the ladder of transformation?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And every time you ask that question, like the next rung on their ladder of transformation is a truck wreck. You see, it's all different. There is no...
Yeah, they're all different, yeah.
There is no prescription for what each person needs to do to get to their next higher level of consciousness, their next level of maturity, their next level of that kind of thing. So you're making these decisions, and it just so happens that as I'm trying to relate to this person who may be straight or gay or transgender, it might just so happen that there's a wedding involved. Now, the question is not, it's still not, should I go to a gay wedding? Because that is that's categorical, not charitable.
Oh,
you see?
Yeah.
So I've thrown all my orientation toward their transformation, the affordance of their transformation. I've thrown all of that away for a category. Now they're like an interchangeable part in a car.
Oh my gosh.
And bam, now I don't have to think anymore, and that process is over.
Oh my gosh.
But now I still need to be oriented toward possibly affording that person's transformation, and maybe that strategy includes a tactic of going to a wedding.
Yeah. That sounds more like love to me. Because of the affordance of choice, like the affordance you're oriented towards affording that person.
Yes, in a war, you have decisive battles and you have shaping operations. You see? And the war is is to win everyone's better self. That's the war. And the battle to get there could be decisive things, and there could be shaping operations. And attending a wedding could be a shaping operation so that it sets you up to make significant advancement decisively in the war 4 years later.
Yeah.
But you need this shaping operation because you can see clearly. So Christians, the reason they're jumping to this stock answer is because they can't see, and it flips them out it produces too much anxiety for them to realize how much they can't see, and to realize that a wise person needs to have the sagacity to be able to look forward that far in order to make a wise decision now. That's too hard to do, so let's just categorize everything and hate everybody.
Wow.
Done with it.
That sounds right. I don't even know how to respond to that. How we doing in the comments?
I don't know. I want to talk about ego, though.
Okay.
We'll look at the comments.
Man, I
maybe
hope
after this.
that's clear to. I hope that's clear to the people watching.
Yeah, I hope so. Because, like, if being gay is somebody's big hang-up, like that's the big abomination, maybe 5 years later they won't be, or what? I don't know. I don't want to come across as I'm not qualified to talk scientifically or psychologically about sexual orientations. I'm just not qualified to do that. And so, I know what the Bible says, but I also know the situation in which we live today, and we're not going to kill people. You're not going to stone them.
Yeah.
Like Steven Anderson wants to do out there in, Tempe, Arizona. They're here. We're not going to stone them. What are you going to do? You have an opportunity with a living person who isn't stoned or have their head cut off or killed to afford some transformation for them. Are you up to the task?
Yeah.
I don't think we are. I don't think Christians are. So, I guess the ego thing is this. Everyone has egoic attachments. And when going kind of back to the banner waving thing, people, your sexual orientation, if you identify strongly with it, that's an egoic attachment. And so a gay person going to a gay pride parade, a straight person going to a straight pride parade,
Right.
they're both committing the same error.
Yes.
It's not like one's good and one's bad.
Right.
They've both chosen to invest their identity into something that is not them.
Right.
In heaven, you're neither, married nor given in marriage, but are as the angels in heaven. Right? So that's not who you really are. Your sexual orientation is not who you are. It's an egoic. When you want to wear it, like when you want to wear the banner of something and identify with it, and this is me, egoic attachment. And part of the job of a spiritual leader or a counselor or a mentor, maybe like Alistair Begg, would be to get people to separate from their egoic attachments, recognize them and separate from them.
Yeah.
So if you're waving a rainbow flag and you're like, I'm gay as the day is long, or if you're wearing a straight pride, whatever, they both need to be disabused of that egoic attachment in pursuit of the new man, of the new creature. That's their carnal self. You're you see what I'm saying?
You know what I just thought about with the ego thing
and
is...
so I don't want to be a progressive church waving a banner which reinforces their ego and creates more rubble on top of them that they have to be dug out later if the authentic self will ever come out. So I'm all in favor of these are just egoic attachments. Everybody has egoic attachments. We interact with people every day who have egoic attachments. And in this day and age when the whole gender sexual orientation thing is such a big deal culturally, you're going to have a higher percentage of people who are going through this phase.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out how to relate to them in a way of wisdom that affords transformation and charity, not categorically. That's what we're called to do. Not categorize them into this thing that will never... Yeah. Anyway.
So you know what's interesting about that? The severance of the... Affording the severance of the... from the ego in order to get closer to the authentic self. When you look at 1 Kings chapter 3, what Solomon's trying to determine who is the authentic mother. That's what he's trying to discern. He wants to know who the real, authentic, genuine mother is. And the way that he does that, what actually hinges, what actually like pivots his decision, or he basically determines it, is the one who is willing to separate from the whole of the child rather than half of it.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? So she's the one who's willing to detach fully
that's
from the
yes,
child.
That's the
And say,
the full
listen,
willingness for the full ego death.
Yes.
Full separation from the thing that I care about the most.
Yes.
That I've staked my identity as a mother on the
Exactly.
existence of this.
Yes.
And now I'm fully willing to separate that, and that's what makes me authentic.
Yes.
Wow.
That's what she says.
That's so good.
That's what she says. Is once she understands that if Solomon were to cut the baby in half, then life's done.
Right.
Right? She says she separates from the entirety of the baby and goes, give it to her, that it might live. At least.
Yeah.
So she separates from the whole of it rather than
That's oh wow! I never noticed that before. So right there, we have a picture of the non-egoic self separating from its emotional identity attachment.
yes. And that is
And that's
it's a
what
hallmark.
demonstrates it as authentic.
Exactly. And Solomon's wisdom was able to not only discern that, but was also this is the best part, is he was able to generate the affordance, the situation, in
Yeah.
order to have that authenticity emerge.
Yeah.
He because he says, well, so he listens to the two of them, and then he's like, well, bring me a sword. So he knows how to create a set of criterion that would give him the opportunity to discern authenticity.
Authenticity is willing to separate wholly
Yes.
from that which it previously identified.
Well, that's Jesus
so-
on the cross as well.
Well, I mean,
My
it
God,
kind of
why
sounds
hast thou
like it.
forsaken me?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it kind of. We've been talking about imminent domain metaphysics and how it's kind of hard to grasp.
Yeah.
But this kind of sounds like one of those things that I think you're onto something with. Like earlier when you started talking about the whole thing, it's like, yeah, it's a good story and it makes a lot of sense. But then now when you tied it into ego like this,
Yeah.
it seems like a pattern of how can I interact in a particular situation in which authenticity somehow becomes more apparent,
Yes. It
or
becomes
discovers itself, or something like that.
Yeah.
How
can
so
you
that
do
could be a
that?
goal. How be a goal?
Yeah, totally.
So we are discoverers of the authentic.
Yes.
Like, and I don't mean like we are discoverers
Yeah.
of the authentic. See,
Yeah.
to remove the cover off of,
Yeah.
find the authentic and take the cover off of it,
Right. Yeah.
and see what that is.
Well, it's kind of
Wow.
interesting because when the ultimate ego death archetype in the Bible is when Jesus dies on the cross,
Right,
and
yeah.
that's when the veil from God of like what's the true reality is discovered.
Discovered.
It's actually severed in two. Yeah,
But yeah, it's
but there's something with ego death that affords the ability or the
there's
opportunity
no
for
longer a separation into the holy of holies.
right
That authentic self is now
whole.
accessible after
whole.
the ego death.
Yeah, it's accessible. Yes, it's not separated. The wall of partition is
Right.
taken down. What I think is what Paul says.
Yeah, if you think, you know, who are you, Kevin? Well, I'm a cybersecurity guy for a healthcare company, or I'm a YouTube guy. You know,
Yeah.
None of those things are me. And it's like this ego death allows access to the authentic self.
Yes. Yes.
No, I'm not those things. Rip that in two, bam.
Yeah.
Throw that away. That's not you.
So something else just hit me.
What's that? Yeah.
This is for another time, but we've
you're
been
on a
talking
roll.
about Plato's Plato's Republic.
Yeah.
Right. And the three tiers of the kingdom.
Yep.
Right. And then the three tiers of the soul,
Mm-hmm.
and analogous to the three tiers of the just city.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The Old Testament has its own version of that in the construction of the tabernacle, because the tabernacle has
Oh, wow.
three
The outer court, the inner court, and the holy of
in
holies.
the holy yes.
Yeah.
And that's an archetype of each individual's relationship with God. Later on in the New Testament, like, you know what I'm saying?
So
Ye are the temple of God, all of that stuff from Paul.
What's the bad guy's name in Zelda?
Ganon. Or Ganondorf, yeah.
Ganondorf?
Depends on what.
Ganondorf?
Yeah.
So, the power being inappropriately placed is like the Ark of the Covenant being in the hands of the Philistines.
Oh.
You see?
Okay. Okay.
And interestingly, Israel, having rejected her Messiah, doesn't know where the Ark of the Covenant is. At least, there's all kinds of theories. Like it's in Ethiopia. It's, Ron Wyatt thought it was buried under where Christ was crucified. I mean, there's all kinds of theories out there. But officially, nobody knows where whatever was in the Holy of Holies, nobody knows where it is.
Yeah.
Because it's all ego now.
Wow.
You just uncovered that one. Wow.
Yeah, I'm enjoying thinking about this one.
That's worth
The
thinking
three
about.
tiers of the temple or the tabernacle.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Comments?
Oh, man. Let me see.
Let's see what we got here. Can you?
I need a break.
No, yeah. Ivan the Grand Inquisitor is a picture of what's happening in most of the churches. Like Ivan at the end, it was all in his head. He struggled with his lack of faith. Oh, wow, that's pretty good insight. The church, all the church ideas are just in the head. One of the recent, this is Prudence McFrugal. And I don't know if I said thanks to Prudence McFrugal yesterday for the super chat, but thanks today for that, for yesterday. One of the recent popular deliverance ministers, Alexander Pagan, has a book that talks about the temple being an example of our bodies and souls. Alexander Pagani, Alexander Pagan. I get the ego death concept, however, sometimes you just have to let crap go in order to experience abundant life. I think that's part of it, yeah. Let's see if we roll up here. I don't know if I didn't put these comments to where I could display them on the screen. He said, not sure who the other guy is, but he's blowing Kevin's mind right now. Yes. This is why we hang out. Nick blows, his name is Nick. He's a soccer player. That's his ego.
Yeah, I've been visiting Kevin for last week.
Yeah, thanks to One Day for the super chat. Appreciate that. He says, I appreciate the candor of this conversation.
Oh.
It's like there was another one, too.
Yeah, this is what I do for vacation.
Forging Beyond the Belief. For the super chat.
Yeah.
Whoever that
Cool.
is. Roberta says, I'm feeling a bit bad for the woman who is trying to do the right thing spiritually and has to deal with all the unhelpful judgment.
Mm.
I guess the grandmother in the situation who went to Alistair Begg for advice.
Yeah.
Prudence McFrugal said your sexual orientation is not who you are. Amen. Kayla, can't do it for themselves. How can they afford transformation for others if you can't for yourself?
That's right. That's got to be right.
Yeah.
That's got to be totally right.
Well, I think that brings up a big issue. Like so the church, and I'm not trying, whatever, I'm just going to let this come out. The church is not doing a good job of cultivating wisdom in people.
Right.
And so
Clearly.
Yeah. I mean, look how Alistair Begg, you got one guy who tries to think for a change,
and we're having
and everybody jumps on his case.
Well, it's not even
in a moralistic, ideological way.
Yes, it's not that you're making that assessment that there's no cultivation of wisdom by the church because of what Alistair Begg did. It's because of how, and I want to say it slow, how the way in which everybody reacted. As if this is confusion, and this is what do we do?
Well, it's like COVID wasn't the problem; lockdowns were the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the lack of wisdom necessary to deal with COVID.
Right. The lack of wisdom in the aftermath.
Yes.
And in the response.
That's how you're putting your finger on the pulse to make that assessment.
That's like a litmus test it's a diagnostic.
Yeah. Right. Like there's hundreds and thousands of views of videos of people going back and forth about this.
So they can't.
As
like
if the problem is homosexuality or not enough doctrine in the church or regulation.
So what is the problem is the church isn't cultivating wisdom in people.
Mm-hmm.
The problem isn't gay weddings.
That's right.
The problem is the church isn't cultivating wisdom in people. And so, of course, they're going to flush this guy down the toilet and cancel him because they don't know anything else to do. They have not been trained up to cultivate wisdom in anybody.
Yeah.
Therefore, they cannot imagine doing anything other than categorically.
Yeah.
They can't do anything charitably. They have to act categorically because they cannot not.
They cannot do otherwise.
They cannot do otherwise. Right. That's all they have. That's the only tool in their kit bag is categorical dismissivism.
You know, and I kind of want to, like, maybe just for a second, just so we don't get, too heavy on the Christians and stuff like that, but the same thing's happening in the political sphere too. Like, people in this political sphere think along the same lines and desire the same sorts of simulated thinking.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's not just a problem within the church.
Pre-specified answers that can be gotten to easily.
Yeah.
Without anybody having to think about how to solve problems.
Exactly. And I think that might be one of the reasons why, hopefully the imminent domain metaphysics might just, it might be trash. It might be trash. But the thing is the fact that that we're even attempting to, take a spectrum and then go like this with it and then go like this with it and then realize that it was never in our hand in the first place.
Yeah.
It
could be.
It
could be how it goes.
That you're at least attempting to flex or work out or wrestle with something that's different, that will give you, even if it is false or of no use whatsoever, just the act of going through the trials and tribulation of wrestling with that thing will build you up. It'll build up the body in a way that allows you to actually maybe deal with something that is a little bit more serious or concrete or immediate.
Yeah. What if the gender confusion that's going on right now, all the disagreement about gender and sexuality in society, what if that's just practice for a real problem coming later?
Right.
And Christians aren't aren't going to practice.
Yeah.
They're avoiding going to practice by categorically dismissing to a stock answer.
Yep.
And then when a big problem comes, they will be no help.
This is totally Mr. Miyagi.
All the lost people.
Yeah.
All the lost people who are out there in the secular world, they'll be solving all the problems while the Christians are out here having all their moralistic statements about everything and be completely ineffective to do anything to help themselves or anybody else.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you learn it in The Karate Kid. It's like Daniel is painting the fence, and he's getting so frustrated because painting the fence means nothing. It's meaningless motions, right? But then Mr. Miyagi knows that he's affording him the opportunity to develop the muscle memory, the spiritual body muscle memory and strength and not strength in just sheer brute force power, but the strength of proportion of how to bend the wrist just enough to catch the other person's, whatever arm, to where it's a more tactile and precise development process with opponent processing as part of its part of what's implicit in paint the fence. That way, when it's so ingrained in his body that upon the time that he gets attacked in real life by a real problem, what's the kid's name? The blonde-haired kid. Johnny Lawrence.
Yeah.
When he gets attacked, he's able to just naturally pop, pop, block. Right? So why are we not treating our spiritual exercises in that way? You know?
I think that's a great question. What do you think that would look like?
Well, I think, honestly, it would look like practicing with ways of thinking which are outside of your spiritual rigor mortis. You know what I'm saying? So it does include maybe thinking about, like for me right now, it's the immanent domain metaphysics. This is flexing my current state of spiritual rigor mortis.
Right.
And at the end of all of it, it may just be painting the fence.
Mm-hmm.
But someday,
without any
Johnny,
application,
Johnny Lawrence might come attack me, and the muscle movements that that immanent domain metaphysics, caused me to wrestle with,
right.
allow me to be agentic in the world.
Yep. Second nature.
So that's what I think it looks like.
Come into play.
So from a more simplistic state of, or maybe let's just say a more elementary state, maybe it would look like having Christians or having people who are interested in making good decisions, maybe just thinking in a shape, like you did. Like that was like amazing.
Mm.
Here's a line.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want you to visualize in your mind's brain, where's the line? And now you're looking through the line. Whoa,
yeah, now who's the bad guy?
How'd you do that?
Now who's the bad guy? Yeah.
How did you do that? That might have something to do with the beam in one's own eye, No, he's taken, what does he say first? The mote? A mote is like one of these, and then a beam is like one of these. I don't know. Whatever.
That's kind of funny.
But, I would like to see, maybe in Sunday school when you have kids, you're training up kids. Why don't you let them play with some shapes? I want you to think of, throw them a triangle or something. Now I want you to think about the Trinity. I want you to think about something that has 3 distinct parts, but is also one.
Mm-hmm.
That's them thinking in shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very basic. Mm-hmm. You could throw that to a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And, then cumulatively, as time goes on, you have no idea what they'd be able to, kind of, what kind of a mental load they'd be able to handle.
So just to flesh that out a little bit, we were talking earlier how some of the thinkers of the past,
Mm-hmm.
anyone from Plato to Nicholas of Cusa,
Mm-hmm.
appeal to shapes in order to explain concepts.
Yes.
And how that's helpful.
Yeah.
Visualizing how things pan out in spatial reality.
Not necessarily like images, like trying to people who I have a photographic memory. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about, confronting a newer concept and learning how to break it down into its elementary parts. And the most basic elementary parts of space are like geometrical shapes.
Right,
a line, a square, a triangle, and then being able to kind of, in your mind's eye, like maybe manipulate or move them, or better word, articulate them in some way, and seeing how then when you do come across something like a new concept when you're developing as an adolescent, as betrayal, right?
Injustice.
Or injustice. You have some kind of cognitive, you have a cognitive tool that takes it from being this like super duper abstract kind of maybe feeling that you have, and maybe even, pulling down from the abstract and pulling up from the feelings that you have, and actually having something that you can formulate, and then put it to the side and revisit it or something, because you've kind of already got the work done.
Yeah. And so this, like, I have I think we talked about this yesterday, but an example of a shape would be something like this thing we talked about yesterday, where this spiral on the left, it's a spiral, but it kind of looks like a. Oh, by the way, this could be the spiral of IDM. Anyway, we were talking about a spiral earlier, but anyway, the point is consciousness seems to get bigger, kind of like a triangle on the left.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, categorical. Let's call this categorical moralism.
Mm-hmm.
Categorical moralism, like just ruling out all attendance of all gay weddings, because I'm not oriented in charity toward any individuals.
Yeah.
I have a category of things I will not endorse.
Yes.
It's like two different things. It's very fat. It's very big and fat. When you're less mature, when you have lower levels of consciousness, you have categorical moralism. And then as you increase consciousness, your categorical moralism narrows and narrows and narrows like a triangle.
Yep.
And you are now, instead of operating with categorical moralism, you're operating according to values.
Yeah.
And so that's an example of how shapes
can help you relay a concept.
And kind of, they help relay a concept. They help kind of make it stick.
Yes.
And they give you something to play with as you adjust the thinking. Can you adjust this shape, or is it the right shape?
Right.
Should we be doing a different one?
Right, because what I could say to you is I could take the concept of the spiral and actually say, what needs to happen is you need to invert the triangle, and then you have a more succinct. So your morals, so your categorical,
they're inversely proportional.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and then we can talk about it that way, and it makes more sense. You know what I'm saying? It makes for the communication to be less abstract and in the data compressed realm of language and more into physicality.
Yeah, people think they are they think they are growing spiritually when they can make more rigid categorical. No, I will never do this. I will never watch TV. I will never do this. Yeah,
Quickly.
That's simulated thinking.
Yes,
that is not spiritual growth. That's the opposite. And the problem,
That's exactly how I feel about it. I feel like the wisest person is able to somehow kind of reciprocally understand all that is relevant in the given situation, yet also simultaneously focus on the central, most important aspect at the given time. It's like this simultaneous movement of opening yet concentrated.
Well, so to extend that a little further, there's one of the problems we always do is we optimize for one thing without understanding second and third order consequences.
Right.
And we're bad about that. And that's the lack of wisdom. We don't look forward to see what else this is going to do. Oh, we're going to outlaw the killing of white rhinos. Well, now they're killing silverback gorillas.
Right.
We need to address the poverty in the village.
Yep.
Not just outlaws. You see what I'm saying? So you cause these other externalities, and like we talked about, did we talk about it online, or was it in FSI, where we talked about, or somewhere else where we talked about the wolves? They took the wolves out of Yellowstone.
Yes. Yep.
And then the moose overpopulated, and then they started eating certain lands to where they were barren. And the whole place started dying because of chain effects on this. Yeah. And ultimately, they found out in the 90s they got to bring the wolves back because that was actually had things in balance.
Yes. We were talking about that at FSI on Wednesday. Again, it's like it's going through spiritual exercises. But
that whole thing though, of these, when you optimize for one thing, I'm going to optimize to not go to a gay wedding because I'm optimizing to not endorse a gay wedding.
Right.
But at the same time, the second and third order effect is the transformation. You could have applied wisdom and afforded some kind of transformation for yourself and maybe somebody else, and you just sacrificed that, and then maybe a lot of bad things happen now because you did something categorically without realizing how many other things would be affected, like a domino effect.
Right. Because
we're stupid.
And I saw this happen. This literally happened in a lot of the comments where people were thinking that, oh, and you know the common conservative Christian trope of, oh, you're just super open. You can't be this open
Right,
with,
yeah,
you know, because then you'll invite in all of this sin into the church and blah, 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 blah. You know, like the word open is like, you know, a bad word. You know what I'm saying? Like the more open somebody is, the more, you know, sinful they are. And what a lot of the criticism was
it's easier
that
to be categorical when you're closed.
Exactly.
It's super easy.
But if you're going to close off we got accused of being what was it? Some humanistic sympathizers.
Sympathizers.
Like, what is that even?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's just nonsense. But what the criticism was that we were in our attempt at exercising wisdom, which reciprocally opens and considers those second and third and, you know, higher order side effects. There's that opening, but as you're saying, there's also the categorical focal point of, well, you have to take action, you have to do something, you have to have some sort of basis, but don't lose sight of this. You know what I'm saying? So with that juxtaposition, holding that in an attempt to perform wisely, we were getting criticized for one necessary aspect of that process, which was to remain as open as optimally possible. Mm-hmm. Right? By, oh, you're just you know, this is not love. The love is telling the truth. Well, so people are very quick to neglect that opponent processing, or that I guess that contrary processing that we're talking about, where there's the opening, but also the zeroing in on a particular instance or specific thing.
I'm opening because I can consider a wider array of aspects.
Yes.
And I'm narrowing in because I am more able to identify the problem, which actually turns out to be a hard thing to do.
Right.
And then also identify consequences, unintended consequences, second, third order effects, and the chain domino effects that come out from those.
Yeah.
Wisdom does not just understand the situation for the immediate, but also can align a tactical move with a strategic goal.
Yes.
Understanding the fallout
from
that tactical move. Because every time you do something, you do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's create a phone so we can carry it everywhere we go. Well, let's create a smartphone. Well, now we've got, AI reading people's minds, basically maximizing time on site, causing dopaminergic reward systems.
Right.
They're trying to get mobile computing, but they wind up getting dopaminergically addicted people.
Right.
You got something you weren't intending for.
Right.
Because, hey, let's optimize for this. Well, this comes with it.
Yeah.
Here's the pork in the bill,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's fun. What do you think? What do y'all think in the chat? Y'all ready to be done? I feel pretty good about having covered.
Yeah, I mean,
enough aspects to think about. I don't feel like we have to be exhaustive about all of this in one conversation.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we covered enough aspects to,
at least make it valuable and worthwhile. I mean, it's totally been worthwhile for me.
Something to chew on and try to be conscious about making decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, just another gym session.
Another gym session.
Yeah.
That's about it. If you liked what you're getting here today, remember to... Let me see if I have this up here. I don't think I have the slides up here, but if you want to support... If you like what you see, you want to see more of it, the details to support the channel are in the description below this video. Thanks, Nick, for being here. Thank you all for watching. Thanks, everybody in the comment section. May the Lord bless you, and good day.